to the first of our two-day webinar series. We have partnered up with one of our favorite partners, which is BVXL, to bring you guys 10 pitfalls to avoid when replatforming to Shopify Plus today. So I am really excited to kick this off. Like I said, it's a two-day series. We will be back tomorrow with more. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump into day one. So quick couple notes before we get started here. If you guys have any questions as we are going through this webinar, please do not hesitate to use the Q&A function in GoToWebinar. If you're in your control panel, there's a little tab that says questions. Just click on that, and anything that comes to mind, you can fill that out and submit that, and we will have dedicated time for Q&A at the end, and we will get to every question. And that is pretty much it. So let me introduce you guys to the presenter that you will be hearing from today. His name is Andrew Pizzula from BVXL, and he is the Director of E-commerce Solutions. He is their Shopify Plus Solutions Lifeline, and with over 5 years of e-commerce platform experience, Andrew creates and implements solutions strategies for new opportunities. He has worked closely with Zendaya, Frame Denim, The Giving Keys, K-Swiss, Oscar de la Renta, Jewelry.com, and more, so a lot of really big brands. At BVXL, he leads the e-commerce solutions team to achieve one primary objective, and that is to ensure that every client that replatforms to Shopify receives the highest quality web store possible. So that's a little bit about Andrew, and we're really excited to hear from him today. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda that he will be taking you through here today. And I will go ahead and hand it over to Andrew now to take you through the summary and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Peter, and appreciate the introduction. Again, my name is Andrew Pizzula. I'm the Director of E-commerce Solutions at BVXL. Just to reiterate, I'm responsible for business development and working on all the replatforming projects from various platforms like BigCommerce and Magento, and migrating them to the Shopify Plus platform. So just to go through the agenda quickly, and for a little bit of context, I wanted to give some background on our agency, and then also a little bit about the Shopify Plus platform before going into the 10 pitfalls to avoid when replatforming. And then again, just to reiterate too, this is all going to be centered around migrating to the Shopify Plus platform. And at the end, we can open it up for QA and wrap things up there. So real quick, BVXL is a full-service agency that focuses primarily on the Shopify Plus and Optimizely platform. We've been around for about 3 years. We've worked with some of the largest names on Shopify Plus. So if you look into our portfolio, you'll see Red Bull, Procter & Gamble, Movement Watches, Hallmark, and then more recently, The Giving Keys, Kopari Beauty, many others. We're also the only Shopify partner that's also a 3-star partner with Optimizely, which really just means we're very focused on UX and implementing best practices in terms of design and understanding how that affects revenue per visitor. We also work with our clients across the entire funnel. So this includes user acquisition, conversion rate optimization, and retention strategies as well. And since we're in a position to really guide our clients, we're very data-driven and make sure that we can tie return on investment to all of our recommendations and our clients' investments as well. So, for those that don't know about Shopify Plus, we've strategically aligned with them and built our whole business around specializing in the Plus platform for a number of reasons, which you'll hear throughout the presentation. But Shopify Plus is a cloud-based e-commerce platform that has been developed really with high volume and mid to large merchants in mind. Shopify as a whole has 275,000 merchants of all sizes on the platform. Really large and growing developer community. More recently, the Shopify Plus team has really focused on building out an enterprise version of the software for really the more sophisticated and higher volume merchants. So where they place their investments is really in the additional feature set, which includes more available APIs, more control over things like the checkout, more access for teams like ours to inject scripts and more code control. So it's really enabled our team to move along with Shopify upmarket. The platform itself is very robust, offers a ton of flexibility and all of that, which traditionally would be a really high price point with other enterprise applications. It's very, very disruptive in the market. So with that all said, I can go into the 10 pitfalls to avoid when we're replatforming to Shopify. Now that you have a little bit of context about where we're coming from and a little bit more about the Shopify platform. So as I go through this, please again jot down any questions that you have, and we can address those at the end. So the first one I want to go through is the first pitfall is I need a platform that will allow me to develop anything I want. And for me, this has been really the most notable shift in the market. And if you've heard our founder speak, he's said this all the time, that there's a real shift in the e-commerce platform space where the platform has really gone from the suite of the CTO to the CMO. And I completely agree with this. There are on-premise solutions like Magento that give you a ton of development flexibility. But at the same time, you also then carry that burden of managing your own technology and infrastructure or paying someone to do that for you. On the other hand, the approach that we've taken to align with a SaaS platform like Shopify, it really gives you a really flexible and robust system. But then, as a merchant, you don't have to worry about technology or hosting and infrastructure in general. And this decision really boils down to what your needs are, what your goals are, and the way that I see it for most B2C retailers, you shouldn't be picking a platform, an e-commerce platform, just because it allows you to develop anything you could ever imagine. What you should really do is pick a platform that enables you to be agile and nimble from a marketing standpoint, enable your team to make updates, run campaigns, put up banners and personalization, and still deliver a really amazing front-end experience to your customers. So with that, I mean, your life overall will obviously be much less stressful. You don't have to worry about concerns with speed and infrastructure, or more importantly, crashing during those peak times during high traffic moments. So the next slide here, the second pitfall here is really I need to be on a platform that my largest competitors are on. And touching along the same lines, 5 to 10 years ago, this may have been true. Merchants then were really forced to choose really high-end technologies like an IBM WebSphere or ATG, Oracle, or even more recently in the mid-market, something like a Magento. And merchants were forced to choose that because they wanted to accomplish, then innovative things like responsive design or integrating with back-end systems, but really that's just not the case anymore. Technology is caught up, as it always does. So really what we suggest is picking a platform that will handle your technology requirements, again, allowing you to be nimble from a marketing standpoint and allow you to really scale. So from a front-end perspective, Shopify has a very, very flexible system, and then the APIs that are now more recently opened up allows you to build a lot of custom functionality and integrate with virtually any back-end system as well. So for example, we've taken on Shopify projects for some very large and sophisticated businesses that frankly had very complex requirements. And using Shopify's new APIs, we're allowed to integrate with ERP systems like NetSuite and SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, and even completely custom backend systems sometimes. So as you can imagine, if you can leverage a platform like Shopify in these scenarios, you can really implement these at a fraction of the cost of some of those traditional enterprise applications. And if you can take advantage of that. Those companies are much better off, saving that money and throwing it at marketing, driving traffic to the top of the funnel, and really drive the business forward that way. So again, the main point here is just not to overinvest in technology. For how the Shopify platform has evolved today, you probably don't need it anymore. And instead, save that money and invest in the top of the funnel. So pitfall number 3 is shiny object syndrome. So, many companies, will come to the table with some really great and interesting and sometimes crazy ideas. So whether it's, a product builder, virtual reality shopping, a virtual fitting room, I want to upload my face and try out glasses, whatever it is. And big ideas are great and they're all possible, but that shouldn't give you tunnel vision during the process. So what I always suggest is really to back up, understand what the business goal is, understand why you're doing this replatform, what challenges are you having with your current platform, and set KPIs. It's always good to have that baseline of numbers, whether it's traffic increase, conversion increase, AOV increase, whatever it is, it's good to kind of lay the foundation. And from there, it's much easier to build a project plan around that. And then the list of requirements or features that really will address those goals. After we get, that phase 1 up, let's work iteratively from there and implement the big ideas down the road. So pitfall number 4, I want to have the most unique looking site out there. And this comes up especially with brands that, really have an importance on their image. And, the biggest point is that there's a balance that you want to strike here. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants a really unique site. It's the face of the brand. It's important to get that first impression right and get that across on the home page. But at the same time, everyone also wants to make sure that they have the optimal conversion rate. So, when you think about just a pure creative resource or a pure creative agency or shop, they may be able to produce, really beautiful designs, really beautiful aesthetics and banners and logos, but their expertise is, it may not lie in web, e-commerce, UX. Those are 2 very different things. And this is part of the reason why us as an agency has taken on design in-house. And our approach on this is really to make sure that we're designing a site that represents the brand image, tells the story correctly, highlights the value proposition of the brand, but also make sure it's really optimized to convert. So, the goal from a conversion standpoint is really to build something that addresses, again, all of your personas, your target audience, make sure it speaks to them. And then from a structure standpoint, still make sure that the site is really easy to navigate and allows your audience to find exactly what they're looking for in the fewest clicks possible, and try to remove all the barriers to have them check out and convert into an order. So again, bottom line is make it unique, but not to the detriment of UX and conversions. The next one here is number 5. We must preserve all the features. So obviously this is important, and with all clients we evaluate. Technical difficulties there, apologies. So just to reset, number 5 was we must preserve all the features. So again, with all of our clients, we go through and look at their feature set of their current site, make sure we're preserving those that are critical. So jumping back to the e-commerce platform space, I don't think side-by-side comparison of just features alone is really relevant. No single platform by itself is going to be the best at everything and at every single feature. Most platforms will overlap in their feature set, probably 80 to 90% of their list, but may handle certain things differently. For example, when we're looking at Shopify, it has a great feature set out of the box. The biggest thing is it's always worth exploring how that feature set can handle your business requirements. Or if you can explore changing some of your business workflows or requirements to fit within the native platform. And that especially holds true and is especially relevant if that doesn't impact your revenue. Looking beyond that, if there are features that don't exist that is a requirement, that's the beauty of having a really healthy ecosystem around the platform. So first we would want to look at the apps, make sure that we don't have to reinvent the wheel if there's an app out there that will accomplish your goals. And then if you take a step further than that, there's always the ability to go through custom development, because again, Shopify has those APIs available that really enable you to do that. So the first thing is just be open to the idea of handling requirements creatively. It'll make your life a whole lot easier and make the transition much smoother. The second is that it also might be a good time to take a step back and maybe do some cleanup of your feature set. Maybe your site is cluttered, or maybe you've added a lot of things over time. So it might be a worthwhile exercise to go through, look at specific features, especially those that are really unique and custom, and see if they're still relevant today or still bring a lot of value to the business. I'll share one example. I was working with a company that had a really unique product finder. They had maybe 6 or 7 drop-down menus, and every option was predicated on the previous drop-down, and they had a lot of custom logic built into it. So, what we had to do was evaluate, do we want to invest in rebuilding this tool on Shopify, or do we move forward without it? And what they realized after looking into, is this really critical, is that they could really only point to about 1% of their traffic actually using this tool. So at that point, you really have to decide, is it worth the investment? Is it bringing a lot of value? So the way that I really like to approach these feature lists, and especially those that are custom, is to prioritize those features that are based on ease of implementation and what's going to bring the most value to the business, and really prioritize things that way. And this especially holds true when you're talking about time-consuming custom development. The number 6 here is an obvious one, but it has to be perfect when it launches. And that's going to mean different things to everyone, but this also really goes back to shiny object syndrome. And again, understanding what goals you're trying to address up front. But it's really important to not get stuck on this really long feature list that's going to extend timeline, that's going to be expensive, and just keeps pushing out your launch. I always recommend trying to define a minimal viable product, an MVP, for a number of reasons, and an MVP is going to be different for every business. But it's important because you want to launch in a timely manner. You're going to start seeing an ROI if you launch sooner, and you can always iterate on top of that initial launch. The second thing is you don't know what's going to perform out the gate. So you are going to learn a lot from your business the sooner you're going to learn a lot about your website the sooner you launch. So really launch with that MVP and start looking at the data. You're going to see what's working, what's not working, and that is going to impact how you prioritize new features and again, what's going to bring the most value to the business. Another example I'll share quickly is, a lot of people will go through, look at competitors' sites, and they'll see, all the things that they're doing, and they want to make sure they're doing it as well. And one example is to invest in something like a really advanced search tool, and these are phenomenal tools. When you think about things like search merchandising and suggested items, predictive search, word correction, those kinds of things. Again, they're great tools, but it's important to note, is it going to be beneficial to your user base and to your site? So again, important to look at the traffic. If you have a search bar, for example, today, how many people are actually using it? And furthermore, what kind of sales can you attribute to, and what would be the potential lift from, implementing something a bit more sophisticated. Once you look at the data and get some numbers behind it, it's going to be really easy to determine if worth that investment. So again, think in terms of an MVP and build things over time after you learn more about the customer. Moving on to number 7, we can just rely on the newer system to handle it. So another pitfall, but this is more from an operational standpoint. And I think it's just important to note, what Shopify does as a front-end platform, because sometimes companies will get in this mindset where, we're implementing a new system and it's going to support everything from front-end to operations. But it's important to just evaluate all the systems that are in play, what is being used today, and how that's going to have an impact on the storefront going forward. So a lot of more, I guess, sophisticated or larger companies are running various systems in the back end. So whether it's accounting system, managing orders, warehousing, fulfillment, inventory, managing purchase orders, whatever it may be, again, it's just important to define the roles of each of those systems and how that's going to play into your e-commerce channel and the replatforming project. So this will really be the exercise that's going to drive any requirements around what systems need to be integrated with one another. So in terms of once an order is placed, how that's going to work with my NetSuite tool or my backend tool, how is my inventory going to be updated, customer data, the workflow there. So just make sure that's not something that is overlooked. Number 8 is when you build it, they will come. So this is a little bit about marketing, and this is a bit of a trap that companies get in where they really, again, kind of get this tunnel vision and spend a lot of their budget on design and development. And I don't want to say that's not important, but you also have to understand the entire e-commerce funnel and think about how are you going to be attracting users to the site and the overall user acquisition strategy. So you don't want to be in a position where you design this beautiful website that converts really well and is really scalable and is going to take you to the next level, but then you don't have the capital or the strategy in place to really drive the traffic necessary to grow. So the biggest thing, again, up front is to evaluate your traffic, understand what channels are working really well, and focus on those channels that are most profitable to the business, whether it be paid social media marketing, affiliate influencer marketing, or maybe a strategy around PPC, SEO, or content strategy. Number 9 is don't sweat the small stuff. So again, this kind of goes back to working in phases, but again, prioritizing those items that are going to bring value and not getting hung up on that long wish list of features or edge cases. And I made a note below is that I think for most of the feature lists that I see, the 80-20 rule is going to apply where 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of the features. And from a platform standpoint, I think one thing that's important to note is to pick a platform that gives you the ability to really easily expand on your feature set and experiment with newer technologies. So this is one of the other reasons that we partner with Shopify is really around the ecosystem. So making sure that it's available to add apps, experiment with new tools. It gives you a lot of agility to quickly deploy new iterations of the site so you can scale after that initial launch. Also, Shopify is investing a lot in pushing the boundaries in terms of e-commerce for many features. So, for instance, they're going to be one of the first platforms that make something like Apple Pay available to their merchants. And since, again, they're SaaS, they can be the ones that push that feature out to all of their merchants rather than having to build it or upgrade it yourself. So again, they're able to take advantage of economies of scale because they have such a large merchant base. And as a merchant, you're much better off letting someone like Shopify invest in those sort of innovative technologies rather than investing in that, being the first one to do it yourself. So again, the main point here is just not to overcomplicate your feature list, and really to pick a system that is on the bleeding edge in terms of new technologies and innovation, and really has a healthy ecosystem as well. Number 10 is thinking that features will work. So this slide is really around pushing a data-driven culture. So I was at a conference recently and heard an acronym, and it was HIPPO, and it stands for Highest Paid Person's Opinion. And I think a lot of teams fall into this trap where, again, they go through the competition, what they're doing, what their sites are, what kind of functionality it has, and they want to replicate everything. And if everyone is sitting around the table and just thinking of ideas, making random suggestions of why things will work, that's obviously a trap for a number of reasons. But one, it's not the best way to really prioritize tasks or make a decision. And two, going back to the acronym, it's really just going to be seniority that wins that battle. But if you really sit down and install tools that allow you to look at the data, data is always going to trump seniority. So that's why it's, again, great to have a system that allows you to really easily experiment with new tools and new apps, and be able to really reference that data to see if that experiment was a win. If it proves to show that that app or customization or design tweak or whatever it is resulted in higher conversions, it's a very easy decision to keep that and implement it in the strategy. If not, you trash it. So there are a ton of tools out there that are really accessible, and a lot of them are already pre-integrated into Shopify. But tools like Google Analytics, I think people can spend a lot more time in there and kind of deducing what makes sense and what where the investment should be. And then also something like Optimizely, which are the second session is built around. But this really gives you everything you need, at least from a starting point, to start analyzing things around your traffic and what users are doing on the site. So where the users are coming from, what channels are the highest converting, where are our users bouncing from, where are they going, or what's the journey on the site, where are they dropping off, what's the conversion rate, why aren't they converting. So again, having this visibility and having access to this data really allows you to focus your efforts on where things are going well, and then fixing those that are failing. And again, with that said, this ties in nicely with our next session with our director of CRO, Todd, who is going to be talking about optimizing, leveraging tools like Optimizely and different methods and strategies to implement moving forward. So that concludes my piece of the presentation. So again, the top 10 pitfalls. So hopefully, you guys saw some value out of this, and hopefully got the wheel spinning a bit more. And happy to open it up to any questions now.
All right, hey guys, this is Peter again. I am going to be handling the questions here. So if you guys have any questions, please make sure to get those in now so that we have time to get to everybody before we wrap here. So let me go ahead and pull up the first question here. So the first question is, how flexible is Shopify? Can I develop custom functionality on the Shopify Plus platform?
Sure, that's a great question. So I think the first thing, there's really two sides to this. So first of all, there's front-end flexibility, and one thing you just have to keep in mind is Shopify is a front-end platform. So for example, at BVXL, what our team specializes in is really the theming language and the customizations of Shopify from a front-end standpoint. So understanding, how things are laid out, how the theming templates are structured, there's a lot of control. And then furthermore, on Shopify Plus, it actually gives us an additional level of access for things like the checkout and taking the front-end flexibility much further. The second side of it is really around, to answer the question, is really around functionality. And one thing to note, and a big differentiator of Shopify, is that all of the custom functionality and including the apps and extensions are done through the API. So there's a couple reasons why that's important, but one is that having those customizations sit outside of the Shopify system is really what allows the platform to be very scalable and not be impacted with upgrade. So in terms of custom functionality, there are obviously there's a large ecosystem of apps that are available for you to extend the functionality of the site. Then you also have the ability to build your own private apps that are either very custom or maybe a piece of functionality that is really just unique to your business. So those custom apps, again, would live outside of the platform, and you have complete freedom of developing your own custom code, and that would interact with the Shopify platform through the APIs. So that addresses, again, front-end flexibility and the custom functionality. And then the last piece I'll mention, which just to reiterate from my presentation, is those APIs also give you that ability to integrate with various ERP systems, back-end systems to pass that data back and forth as well.
All right, cool. So next up, a question from Jeff here. How can the use of Shopify lower your bounce rates? I guess there's a couple here. So is there learning about how to design the homepage, what to have on it, and what to keep off the homepage?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think the biggest thing, and it kind of goes back to my slide around having a unique design. And again, the most important thing is just from a creative standpoint is making sure you're accomplishing the goals of the brand. So whether that's really telling that brand story, or maybe the homepage is really around pushing the products forward, but that design is going to be different for every single customer based on their audience, based on their brand, based on who they are. So from a design perspective, there's, again, that art between balancing, the brand story and conversion. In terms of bounce on the home page, the design is going to be a direct reflection of that. So again, it's really understanding who your target audience is and what's going to speak to them, and what is their most likely path on the home page. Another, not to put off the question, but I think one of the ways that we approach this is really by leveraging Optimizely, which Kitab is going to speak about in the next session. And the way that we leverage this tool is to really A/B test, certain hypotheses of the site. So maybe we have two theories or scenarios of homepage layout and messaging. What we could do is, through Optimizely, test the various home pages and see what performs better. And you can monitor the bounce rate based on that, and really just move forward and again, learn more about your customers based on that data.
All right, sounds good. Next up, from Mehul, hope I got your name right. When migrating to Shopify, what limitations does one face in terms of retaining Google ranking? That's a good one.
Yep, absolutely. So this is going to highlight just a couple of features that are in Shopify, but obviously there's going to be a lot of just legwork and upfront discovery and making sure we're retaining that SEO to the best that we can. So within Shopify, there's a lot of tools available to just ensure that you're going to be successful from an SEO standpoint. So it gives you control over, the URL structure, for example, putting in metadata, all the tags, everything that you need, again, to be successful from an SEO standpoint. And then furthermore, it's going to be crucial to make sure that you're preserving all those URLs. So, making sure that we understand the entire sitemap, whether it be blog posts or certain landing pages, any of those pages that are going to be migrated to the new platform, you need to make sure there's, permanent redirects set up to make sure that, there's no loss in those individual links as well. And then, beyond that, there's obviously a lot of work you can do just in terms of further keyword research and making sure that, the new platform actually drives your SEO forward rather than flatlining.
All right, couple from Todd here. So question number 1 from Todd is, which partners do you prefer for shipping, such as Shipping Easy, and inventory fulfillment, such as Stitch?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. And again, I guess I'll first start from an operational standpoint. It really is going to just depend on the sophistication of the business. We work with companies that live out of very few systems because they have a small catalog and not a whole lot of inventory to manage out the gate. And with that, there's some are working with as small as basic spreadsheets or QuickBooks, and then it obviously builds up from there. So we've worked with customers, again, there was Stitch Labs was mentioned, Skubana, and then on the more enterprise ERP side, we have NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics, and SAP. But that conversation goes much, much deeper than the e-commerce platform. So it goes around, warehousing. Are you managing your own warehouses? Is it international shipping? Is it you need the ability to manage all of your purchase orders? Are you dealing with drop shipping? So there's a lot of questions on really pointing companies in the right direction from an ERP or back-end standpoint. And then from there, it's just a matter of making sure that all that data is flowing properly in and out of the front-end system.
Cool. One thing I can actually say there on the shipping side, while I can't vouch for its integration into Shopify or Shopify Plus or any other kind of ERP, I've used ShipStation in the past, and I thought it was really awesome, and it made shipping easy. So there's another one to look at.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And the one other thing I'd just add to that is with Shopify, there's obviously tools built in to very easily integrate, just basic rates around UPS, USPS, FedEx, and all the basics. And then to really take a step beyond that, ShipStation, I absolutely agree, gives you a lot of functionality around some specific rules and printing shipping labels. There's tools like Shipper HQ, which give a level of sophistication as well in terms of really advanced rules, give you some tools around multiple warehouses, shipping from multiple origins. But again, it's going to be different for every business.
Cool. Next up, so question number 2 from Todd is, how easily does Shopify Plus integrate with other channels like Amazon, eBay, and which partners, if any, do you recommend for channel management?
That's a great question. So there are going to be native feeds that are built into Shopify. So channels like Amazon are very easy to achieve. On the more enterprise end, there are companies that are also leveraging tools like Channel Advisor, which again, that's I would say a more enterprise level platform, but obviously a lot of sophistication around multi-channel management, and that can easily be tied into Shopify as well. And there's also tools like Stitch Labs, where their whole value proposition is really centralizing all the orders, whether it comes through your online channel or other channels like eBay and Amazon as well.
Cool. All right. Next up, this is a bit of a doozy, but so about shipping. So, what solutions are available in Shopify and Shopify Plus when handling shipping from multiple warehouses? To be precise, I guess his exact situation, one warehouse ships to 5 countries and the second warehouse ships to 10 countries. is it possible to separate shipping destination from table rates, I guess, compared to using manual table rates? I hope I got that question right, Mehul. But that's the question. Let me know if you need me to read it again.
No, I think I got the general gist of it. But the biggest thing is that the Shopify tool, I think the most important thing to note is that it gives you a baseline level of shipping rates. And obviously, when you get to the complexity of multiple origins, it really is going to extend beyond the native functionality, which it should. Again, it's more of a front-end platform. It shouldn't be thought of as your operational tool. So when you take a step further, and beyond Shopify, there's a few tools out there that can accomplish that. Some are, when you talk about multiple warehouses, multiple inventory locations, on the enterprise level, a lot of times the ERP handles that. For companies that aren't yet on that enterprise type of application on the back end, we'll leverage, a lot of tools that are available actually in this space. So one I would actually just call out is a tool called Skubana, which really is, to be honest, very disruptive in the space and is providing a level of sophistication that ERP systems typically handle, but at a very competitive price point. And that actually, the reason I thought of that is it actually addresses that need around having multiple warehouses and then assigning each of those warehouses to a specific country or state or location. So it actually does some really intelligent order tracking and order routing on the back end. So that would be one I would definitely reach out to.
All right, cool. Next up, another one from Jeff here. So any experience of having the phase one only be a part of the brand's product catalog? So for example, maybe starting with a sub-brand of the overall brand so the organization can get comfortable with the change.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a great approach, and again, it's just going to depend on the specific goals of that brand and the overall brand. But I think given that Shopify is such a disruptive force, I've actually seen that be a trend where maybe some large companies have really invested their life savings on implementing an IBM system or something that was in the 7 figures to really implement long term. And if they want to either A, experiment with a new brand, or maybe B, they want to experiment with a new market, and maybe they want to localize one of their sites. Trying to accomplish that on an old, antiquated technology is still going to cost them an arm and a leg. So using something like Shopify is actually a really, really good tool in that scenario because it's, relatively speaking, very low cost, and still gives them, a level of the front-end experience and design, that is really going to be comparable to some of the older solutions. So certainly I would say, if there's a scenario where, you're experimenting with a new brand, and especially if it's not super critical to the business today, I think it's a great way to introduce Shopify, make sure it's going to meet the long-term vision of all the other brands, and kind of use that as a test to see if you can use it across the rest of the businesses as well.
Cool, sounds good. So last question here. This is, if anybody else has any questions, kind of your last chance before we wrap up here. So another one from Mehul here. Does Skubana handle correct display of rates at checkout?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I sure can. Does Skubana handle the correct display of rates at checkout?
That would be a great question for Skubana, actually. I can double check on that. I know if Skubana doesn't, there are a lot of tools out there that allow, again, specific business logic to based on like certain origin or certain shipping methods or based on destination to send back live rates based on those business rules. So if Skubana can't, then others can. and hopefully Skavana doesn't hate that answer. But it's a good question for them.
All right, well, that wraps up the Q&A. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and sticking with us, and thank you to everybody that submitted your questions. They were all very good, and I hope everybody learned a lot. So everybody, please go ahead and thank Andrew for sharing all of his knowledge with us today. I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did. And now, next up, again, we are going to be coming back tomorrow at the same time, and we're going to move on towards from replatforming, which we covered today, onto optimization. So once you are on board with Shopify Plus, what can you do to optimize your site and increase the conversion rates and drive as much revenue as possible through the site? So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope everybody shows up tomorrow as well. I will be speaking, and I am really excited about that. And that is everything. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming out today, and I hope to see everybody tomorrow.